just want to record this because sometimes I don't record it and then afterwards it ends up being a longer talk than we actually thought. So I want to welcome all of you. Some of you have been to a conference before, but I know you a little bit, and some of you I've seen for the first time. So what I would like to do in the beginning here is just give you a chance to ask me any kind of questions you have about me, what I'm doing, anything really. Because the main purpose of a conference like this is really to establish a sense of oneness that goes vertically between all of you and the Ascended Masters, but also horizontally between all of us. Because the Masters have said this before, that the more we can come into unity and oneness with each other, the more we form. It's like the unity accelerates what the Masters, or magnifies what the Masters can release through us. And, you know, I'm going to be taking dictations from the Masters. They're going to release light through that, but it's not only coming through me. The Masters say this over and over again, that they use all of our chakras as a magnifying station because they want to send not only the energy, but also the words, the ideas into the collective consciousness, so that they can affect and raise up the collective consciousness. And so the more we come into unity, the more they can do it. And the other two conferences we've had here, we have actually had a wonderful flow because we're all close together here and we eat together, and so people get to talk and they get to know each other, and people who help in the kitchen get to know each other and this and that. So don't think that it's only about sitting here and listening to me or listening to a dictation or giving an invocation. When you talk, when you get to know each other, it's just as important because it's all part of this coming together, you know, and building this horizontal oneness. And so that's why I want to give you an opportunity. Any kind of questions, comments you have. You know, I know it's always hard when you're just starting out, but still, if any of you are sitting with any kind of burning question. I answered what is the secret of life last year, so.
No more secrets.
Yeah.
If anybody has a question, but I have one. The Masters talked a lot about the etheric retreats that we can visit in the night. And I wonder, maybe you have some experience in that area, or others have some experience. My question is, most of us do not remember that, I think, most of the time.
Yeah.
So maybe you can go into that a bit.
I didn't quite understand what you said.
Well, in the night, when we leave our physical bodies,
Yeah?
we can go, if we are chelas, if we are students of the Masters,
Yeah.
we can ask the angels to take us to the etheric retreats of the Masters. This is a place in the etheric realm where we are taught, you might say that are the universities of the spirit, they call it, as well. So and we can visit that in the night.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's Kim can tell us a bit more about his own experiences and so on.
Yeah, it's something you can always do. See, the Masters have explained we have the 4 levels of the material world. We have the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the identity or the etheric realm. And the Masters, the Ascended Masters, of course, they exist at a higher level than these 4 octaves. They're in the, what we call the spiritual realm or the Ascended realm. But they have established what we call the retreats in the identity realm, or the etheric level. And they are mainly, well, not mainly, because they have 2 main functions. One is that they serve to release light to the planet, but also they serve as a kind of schools for us where we can go. Many people over the years, you were just saying it yourself, that they have had certain intuition all of their lives, and then all of a sudden on the outer you find the Ascended Master teachings, and it just seems obvious to you, because it's something you actually knew, and you were just looking for that outer contact, outer confirmation of it. And the reason why people have that experience is that they have been going to these etheric retreats all of their lives, you know. And but you can of course increase the whatever you want to say, chance or opportunity to go there by asking for it. And many people make a habit of making a simple prayer every night before they go to sleep to be taken to. If you have a specific master you're close to, you can ask to be taken to that master's retreat. And you can actually find on the internet, you can probably find a list of the different masters and where they have retreats. But Master Moore is the master of the first way, and he has a retreat over Darjeeling, India, which is often a good place to start if you're not having a particular idea where you want to go. And so the idea is that we learn things there. And quite frankly, over the many years I've been in the Ascended Master teachings, I've met very few people who could remember on a regular basis what they learned there. But many people have sort of occasional remembrances, and you can sometimes you wake up in the morning and you have what some people call a very lucid dream, you know, where you have it's almost like you are aware that you're dreaming, but you're still going through a certain thing. And so many people have had this. They wake up in the morning and they remember being at a certain retreat in a certain situation. The clearest I ever had was many years ago, and it was just like a lucid dream, and I was dreaming some other things, but all of a sudden it was like I was in this room. It was a very peculiar room because it had 8 sides, so it's an octagonal room, and it had these wood panels around it, and it had some, you know, domed ceiling, and I was there with Master Moore, or El Moya as I saw him back then, and he was giving me some instructions. And I knew I absorbed the instructions, but I couldn't remember consciously what they were. And that often happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, and it can seem frustrating, because I've talked to many people who think this is frustrating. But the way I see it is that it's because you don't need to know it consciously, because it subconsciously has an effect on you. And I think many times what the masters give you at a retreat, it's something that you're not quite ready for in your conscious mind. So it has to sort of work its way through your 4 lower bodies until one day it's like you just have this snap, oh, now I see this. It's obvious. And so I think there's no reason to feel frustrated about it, you know, because I think actually if you get yourself into this, that you want to remember, you know, either you become very frustrated and you become very eager, and the more eager you are to have an experience, the more you push it away usually. Or you open yourself up to going to some lower retreat in the mental realm where you can have experiences, but they're not the Ascended Masters. So I think we need to be very sort of relaxed about it. But anyway, what I remember about this experience was that after Master Moore had given me these instructions, he had me kneel and he gave me some kind of blessing, and then he took me out of there and we walked downstairs, and there was like a kitchen area, like a big open kitchen area, and there were people standing in a line, like a soup line. They were getting something. I couldn't see what they were getting. It was some kind of food they were getting. And then he made the remark, just sort of casually, this is the place your mother would come. And I was very surprised by this, you know. And then shortly after that I woke up. And I realized that it must be because she wasn't open to anything spiritual at the conscious level. You know, she was actually very non-religious. Because when she was a child, she had Bible history, as we called it in Denmark, in school. And she was told that Adam and Eve had 3 sons, and from those 3 sons, all the rest of us descended. And at the age of 10, she could see that three men couldn't have children, so she thought all this Bible stuff is all nonsense.
Smart woman.
And she just rejected the whole thing. But nevertheless, she was always a very good person, a very kind person. And so what I understood from it was that she was not ready at the conscious level to connect to a spiritual teaching. But she was still at inner levels ready to receive something. And so that was what this level of his retreat was set up for.
Yeah.
So I guess what this shows is that in some of the retreats, they have levels so that everybody can come and receive something, whatever they're ready for. And I thought it was a beautiful experience because it sort of made me feel that everybody is included. It's not like the masters are elitists, you know, that, but they give people what they're ready for. So, any other questions, comments?
Yes.
Yeah?
About the last book, the mystical initiation of vision, fifth record. The there tells us. I thought that everybody had to do it. It's not the case for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I do too.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah. So in the latest book, Mystical Initiations of Vision, Hilarion says that not everybody has a divine plan. And that surprised me when I heard it also. Did you want to say more about it?
Well, it surprised me. I thought everybody, every lifetime has divine plan.
Yeah.
But he explained to me, but not everybody goes to the higher realms. That's why there's no teacher, there's no ascended master teacher to teach them something. Because before you enter Earth, you talk with the ascended masters, your personal guides, for what to do, what for lessons you have to learn about growth, your plan. But there are a lot of live streams. They are in a low Western realm, so they can't reach the teacher.
Yeah, but I think he also explained that a divine plan is something that you are making before you come into embodiment, and you make it in connection or cooperation with the ascended masters. But you basically have to have taken some degree of responsibility for yourself before you're even able to conceive of making a plan for your next lifetime, what your goals are, what you want to learn, what you want to overcome, what karma you want to balance. So it takes a certain level of consciousness before you can consciously plan your next lifetime. And people who aren't ready for that, they don't make a divine plan. They just sort of come into embodiment, and often their karma becomes their teacher and pushes them to where they have an opportunity to learn. So, was there any?
Yes, I have another question. It's the magic world is now the Ramadan. And the Ramadan.
Yeah.
The whole world. It's about fasting. Is this nowadays having any function in the spiritual sense? The Ramadan. It's only to materially to have, to fast and to eat after the sun set down. And I think in all way it has a function. It has still a function on the spiritual sense. Ramadan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would depend very much on how people approach it and what their attitude to it is, because it's like any ritual, like Roeland was saying, if you sing it with the heart, you put more into it and then you get more out of it. So I think a lot of people, like any ritual, they do it mechanically, and so it doesn't have that big an effect on it. But I'm sure it has some effect in terms of, it gives them a different focus. But then again, it doesn't matter. Many people, I think, just do it because it's a cultural thing. And they don't do it with the attitude that they want to get some spiritual experience out of it. They just don't want to get the condemnation of their neighbors because they are in this kind of a judgmental culture.
I think they see it as a kind of obligation.
Yeah, it's just an obligation. It's just something we've got to get out of the way, And I've heard from Muslims, they only fast in the daytime so that they can eat after dark, and so that's many people, they just do it in the day, and then many of them get very irritable towards the end of the day because they haven't eaten, and so then as soon as it's dark, then they just eat, and so I don't know if it really does that much.
I think it's out of balance now.
Yeah, I think probably it is. Because I think much of Islam, it's like Islam is in some ways trying to do what Christianity did centuries ago, very much reinforce the outer rituals and the outer rules. And I think that is actually an outdated concept. it's again, like I've talked to several people here, that, you know, you have the old concept that salvation is something you achieve by following, being a member of the right religion and following its rituals and rules and practices. And I think, you know, that concept has some validity in the Piscean age, but it really is completely outdated in the Aquarian age, because we need to step up and recognize that it is our level of consciousness that determines whether we can enter a higher realm, and not the outer things we do or the outer affiliation we have. And so I think Islam is behind Christianity, for example. It's like a last-ditch attempt to defend the old ways and kind of intimidate people into following the outer rules.
We talk about energy. 2 years ago, we had a vacation of modern energy about Christmas. We go together. We talk also, we are now in one group together, and the Master release light through us, on our chakras. Ramadan is also, we have to together, to be together.
Yeah.
And is that have the same function?
Well, it probably can bring people together if they engage in it with the heart and are open. You know. I'm not saying that nobody gets anything out of it. You know, I would imagine they do. I don't know, because I'm not a Muslim, but and I think it's been several lifetimes since I was. But I just think that it's a matter of what people put into it. So.
Well, I actually have a personal experience with Ramadan in Istanbul from 2013. After I left Kazakhstan, I went to Istanbul, and it was indeed Ramadan. And in between the Blue Mosque and the Hagia Sophia, it's a park. It's a beautiful park, flowers, tulips. Tulips came from Istanbul as a gift, by the way, to Holland. But everyone comes out after dark and has a picnic. They don't go inside their house, maybe some do, but the whole place becomes flooded with people bringing their dinner, their picnic dinner, and their blanket, and they sit outside and eat. And it's very, very crowded. Imagine it's very, very crowded, like a holiday. Everyone's out picnicking, but it's nighttime. And I was just by myself. And I was literally sitting on a rock because I was tired. I had scoured the archaeology and the museums all day, and my feet were sore, and I was just sitting there by myself looking at the crowd. And there was a blanket with 3 women, like 3 mothers and 3 daughters. And the daughters must have been university students because they spoke English. They must have taken international finance course or something. And one of the mothers told the daughters to invite me to the blanket if I wanted to come and sit on the blanket with them and share their supper, the tea and the biscuits and all the things that they have, the little feast they have. And they invited me over, and of course I went. And I learned actually that part of Ramadan is being kind to strangers and being kind to travelers. And so they were embracing the spirit of what Ramadan means by inviting me over there, but more importantly, the women, the older women that were the mothers, had all kinds of questions for me. Because what is a woman doing alone? Where's your husband? What are you doing here? What is your job? You have a job?
Where's your husband?
Money. They wanted to know all about what it's like to be a woman with money and a job and the ability to travel. And we had this engaging conversation. They couldn't get enough. It's really a wonderful exchange. And they wanted me to come home with them to their house. And yeah, it was just wonderful. And I can't help but think that there was some change because of just being willing to invite me over and me being willing to sit and talk, you know. So yeah, I don't think it's not irrelevant if those kinds of things, you know, even intermittently occur, and people are open to something new, they're different when they go home that night. Those ladies were changed. I know it. They were so happy to have met me, and I was happy to have met them.
But it's actually also their nature, because it's anytime. I have dealt with Muslims for 25 years, so I know a little bit about it. But when you come in their country, they are all the time like that, and that's also because their religion says that. But it's also from their heart, you know. So there are good people everywhere, what kind of religion you have or not, and or if you do Ramadan or not, or whatever. I think it's all the time there. When you come in a country like that, they invite you every time.
And I came away with the one thought that the older women wanted change for their daughters. They thought probably it was too late for them maybe, but not for their daughters. And I think they wanted their daughters to have more of a life where they were free to travel and to work and to make choices.
Some of them.
I mean, I felt that from that particular group.
Yeah, I know some Muslim women in Denmark, and they have explained me about the Ramadan, that it's also much about charity, and they are supposed to think about all the poor people on the planet that do not have enough to eat, and then they give a lot money to charity, especially in the Ramadan. So it's about thinking about others, about love. Yeah, sure.
I have a very different question. I'm not reading this website a long time, only 3 months or so, but I have been reading many spiritual books.
Yeah.
And I always read that when we die, our body should be buried. And now I read that Jesus says that we better can burn our body. And in the other books I read, we better do not, because you burn also something that you lose forever. And I have forgotten the name of that.
Okay.
But what should we do? Because all the time I told people who want to be cremated, don't do that, you better bury. So, and now I read, you better cremate. You know this, so I'm a little confused about that. Yeah.
Well, the Ascended Masters have talked about this for a long time, decades. And what they say is that when you leave one body, I mean, they of course teach reincarnation. So if people don't understand reincarnation, it may be more difficult to understand the Ascended Masters' teachings on it. But what they say is when you leave one body, your soul goes to, according to a level of consciousness, it goes to some station before you come into your next embodiment. It can be to the etheric retreat, but some with a lower consciousness will go to the emotional realm, for example, some will go to the mental realm. So the idea is that once you actually leave that body, it's important for you to leave it behind, to disconnect your soul from it. Because you are going to some place where you can prepare for your next embodiment, which may be, of course, in a very different place, could be in another country, with another group of people. And so what the Ascended Masters teach is that there are souls who can't leave the body and the life they had behind, so they get stuck, and they can get stuck in a sort of a in-between place in the emotional realm, and they can become what they call discarnate souls that have left one body but haven't moved on, so they can move into their next embodiment. And so what the Masters say is that when you burn the physical body, it is easier for the soul, because now it's completely destroyed, or gone, and so it's easier for the soul to disconnect from the body and move on.
But I read many books also of Jozef Roeland. He was a medium here in Holland, and he was guided by Master Alkar. I don't read about Master Alkar on the website, but he was a famous painter once, Belgium, Anthony van Dijk. and he guided him all his life. And when he was in the other realms, because he was taken there many times, and he was taken to a cremation of a soul. That was a very, he was not religious, he was an artist, and he was a very tough man, not nice, very. And when he was burnt, the man was shouting because he was thinking that he felt the fire, because he was thinking in the way we think on earth, you know, and that it was terrible to see. And that was one of the reasons that you better not. But I understand what you talked before.
Yeah, I mean, that could be his subjective experience. But I can only say what the masters have said about it. And it's just about any topic you can find other teachings that say something different. And so you have to decide what resonates with you. But to me, it always made sense with the cremation because I've always had the sense that I have lived before. I don't remember how old I was. Maybe I was 10 years old when I heard the concept of reincarnation. I didn't know very much about it, but just the whole idea that you come back in another body. And it seemed instantly obvious to me, because it was the only way for me that you could explain a lot of things, including why we're so complicated. I probably couldn't have articulated that at the time, but I just knew it was right. And so I've never been very attached to this physical body. But I know that it depends on your level of consciousness. So there are people at a lower level of consciousness that are very attached to the physical body. And you have, of course, an entire culture among Christians. There are many Christians in the United States who believe that their physical body is going to be resurrected in its original form. Why they would want this has always been my question. But so they believe it would be wrong to burn the body because then it's more difficult. I mean, that's what they say, it will be more difficult. Now, to me, then my logical mind says, but the body is going to rot away and there's not going to be anything left. And so you believe that God can still resurrect this body. So why would it be more difficult for God to resurrect a rotted body than a burned body? That never makes sense to me. But again, you know...
And which body? Because you have had many bodies.
Also that, but they of course deny reincarnation. You know. See, they believe that when you die, you are going to be, your soul is going to go somewhere, and then at the last day when Jesus comes back, your body is going to be resurrected, and you're going to have that body in heaven. I could never understand why you need a physical body in heaven. That never made sense to me. But again, you know, that's why I'm saying people's level of consciousnness, if they are very, very attached to the physical body, they might feel it painful when they see the body cremated. But what happened then later? You know, was it still easier for that soul to move on once it saw that the body was gone? Because you can have a situation where, you know, you have embalmment. There are still people that are being embalmed so that the body actually stays relatively unspoiled for a long time. And so that's where you can see that a soul can actually get attached to that body. And that presents a dilemma because if you read all the near-death experiences, I don't know how many there are in Holland. In Denmark, for example, there are very few books translated, but in the United States there are many books about people who have died and then been reawakened at the hospital. Yeah. And so what you see about those is that they are always met with some, maybe relatives, but also some beings of light that come to take them to a certain station. And of course, they can't force them. They are dependent on free will. And so if a soul is very attached to that physical body and won't leave the body because it still looks intact, then it could miss that opportunity to move on. And that's when the souls can then get stuck, especially if they have a lower consciousness, they can more easily get stuck in the astral plane. So even if they are in opposition to it, it's probably still best for them that the body is gone, and you have that finality, and then you can hopefully it's easier to move on. But there's no guarantee that they will move on. See, that's the thing. You have free will here. There's no guarantee of it.
Yeah, it's there's one more aspect that
You speak up a little bit.
yeah, it would be good also to honor your descendants, because when you don't let burn to yourself or cremate, then they need to take care of your body many years. So you need to go to the cemetery. And I know in Estonia, I'm from Estonia, it's a great problem. All the people, they don't know why they are doing. Every spring it starts. Hey, come, let's go to cemetery, do this, do that, please bring this tool, this tool, this tool. I don't want to deal it. but you know, they say, no, we must do it. Why you must do it? No, we don't know, but we must do it. So it's actually a younger generation, they don't want to do it anymore. They also don't know why they don't want to do it. But it's actually, you honor your descendants if you cremate yourself. This is also one of that you just honor other people, and they don't need to go to cemetery, keep a piece of land in good order, because others might look, you know.
We have to maintain it.
Yeah.
Others, yes, but I don't want to be buried like that. I want a nature.
Okay.
Not only a stone or a cross, they don't need to maintain it.
But see, in many countries you can't do that.
Yeah,
For example, in Denmark, it's illegal to be buried outside a cemetery.
that's illegal.
You can have the ashes spread, but you can't be buried outside a cemetery, because then it becomes a burial ground, and they have to respect it so that it can't do anything with that.
Yeah,
land.
but in Holland there are some nature.
Okay, yeah.
Cemeteries, not a real cemetery, but like woods, and you can.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's
Let yourself
Yeah.
be buried there. It's nice.
Because MT knows what they do in Korea with
I
honoring the
have
ancestors.
another question about that. You